The Mojave Desert, endless and merciless, blazing under the scorching sun and covered in golden sands. I trudge through this harsh land, where every step is a battle against fatigue, thirst, and hope all at once. My name is Juan Martinez, and I've come here with one single goal: to save my family. Maria and the kids are waiting for me far away in Mexico, and I have to bring them real wealth, not empty promises. Will I have the strength? Will I make it back alive? Or is this all just a pipe dream? No, I can't back down. The desert wind whispers ancient legends, and I listen closely. These stories aren't just tall tales for the gullible. Every grain of sand, every rock in this land holds secrets from millions of years ago. My path leads me to a mysterious cave, the kind locals whisper about with unease, a place where hidden gold is guarded by something out of the ordinary. Arriving at this little town frozen in time, I feel the locals' wary stares. Narrow streets, wooden shacks, and the heavy smell of fire, sweat, and aged timber create a unique atmosphere. My spot is the saloon, that notorious hangout for prospectors chasing fortune or drowning their losses. Stepping inside, I take in the mix of tobacco smoke and cheap whiskey smells, the low murmur of voices, and the clacking of dice. The bartender, a guy with deep wrinkles and eyes that have seen plenty of dreamers, gives me a knowing look and says, "Another one hoping for a miracle in this wasteland." From words to gold, that's a chasm not everyone crosses. "Beer?" "Two," I say, sliding onto a high stool. He pours slowly, like he's measuring every drop. "Where from?" he asks. "Mexico, long way," I reply curtly. He nods. "Seen your type. All come with big dreams. Half never come back. The rest? They end up here nursing whiskey to forget." I pull out the map, an old thing reeking of dust and danger. My fingers tremble holding it, my thoughts drifting to Maria, the kids, the home we'll one day call ours. The bartender leans in closer, studies it for a long moment. "That cave? In the canyon? Plenty have gone after it. Few came back with anything worth a damn. What's there?" I ask straight up. He looks away, wipes a glass. "Shoshone Indians have an old legend. Way back when the world was young, Earth spirits hid gold in that cave, but they set a guard, something that lives in the dark, not man, not beast. Walks on two legs but cold as stone, eyes that see through walls, skin tough as a turtle shell. They don't sleep. They wait for anyone who disturbs the peace." "Kid stuff," I laugh. He shakes his head. "Last guy who went, Thomas Reed, found him a week later. No eyes, hands bitten off, gold nugget in his mouth. Told us before he died. They know. They remember." "You buy that?" I eye him. He shrugs. "Don't buy it, but I drink less since hearing his story." I smile. Legends and nonsense. I trust my own hands and willpower. If there's gold in there, I'll take it. For my family, for our future. Night falls over the desert. Darkness wraps the land in velvet. Stars blazing in the sky, like witnesses to my hopes. Sitting by the fire, I listen to the silence, broken now and then by a faint tap of stone. 2 strikes. Pause. 2 strikes. It's like a silent message, an echo of something ancient and deep. My thoughts drift back to family, promises, the future. Tomorrow, I start the trek to the cave. The gold is waiting, and I can't afford to turn back. The sun crawled higher over the Mojave, and the town behind me shrank into a blur of dust and wood. The last human voices faded, swallowed by the hot wind and the dry rattle of sand against my boots. Out here, there was only the desert and my own breathing, a rough, uneven rhythm in my ears. The road turned into a barely visible path, then disappeared completely, leaving me alone with endless dunes and jagged rocks. Heat pressed down on my shoulders like a heavy hand. Sweat ran down my back, soaking the shirt, sticking the fabric to my skin. My canteen knocked against my hip with every step, the water inside sounding thinner each time I took a sip. I tried not to think about it, but the thought of running dry clung to my mind like a burr. The map in my pocket felt heavier than gold. Every few minutes I stopped, pulled it out with careful fingers, and checked the faded lines and marks. A crooked canyon, a symbol that looked like an eye. 3 dots where, according to the legend, the cave should be. The paper crackled in my hands, threatening to tear with each unfolding. If I lost it, I would be just another fool wandering the Mojave until the buzzards found me. "Keep walking," I muttered under my breath. "For Maria, for the kids." Saying their names out loud gave me a strange kind of strength. Their faces rose in my memory. Maria's tired smile, the kids' dark eyes full of questions about the future. There was no future without that gold. No land, no house, no way out of the hole life had dug for us. The land around me began to change. The soft rolling dunes broke into ridges of stone, dark and sharp like broken bones jutting out of the sand. Cactus shadows stretched long and thin, like fingers trying to grab my ankles. Somewhere far off, a coyote howled, the sound thin and mocking in the hot air. Hours blurred together. The sun moved slowly, but my legs moved slower. Every step sent a dull ache up my calves and into my lower back. My shirt rubbed my neck raw, each grain of sand in my boots a separate little torture. I kept my eyes on the horizon, where a line of cliffs rose like the teeth of a sleeping beast. That was where the canyon should be. That was where the cave waited. From time to time, I saw signs of those who'd come before me. An old campfire, just a black circle of ash and half-burned wood. A single worn boot, half buried in the sand, its leather cracked and peeled by the sun. Once, I found a rusted shovel blade sticking out of the ground like a gravestone. I didn't touch it. Some things were better left where they fell. As the day bled into afternoon, the heat shifted. It didn't get weaker, it just changed flavor. From sharp and burning to heavy and sluggish. The air felt thick, like I was walking through warm water. My thoughts started to drift, slipping away from me. I caught myself thinking how easy it would be to lie down for just a minute. Close my eyes, rest. The desert would be quiet, gentle. "Don't even think about it," I growled, forcing my legs to keep moving. You lie down here, you don't get back up. The desert didn't forgive weakness. It didn't forgive anything. Eventually, shadows began to stretch longer, and the light softened to a dark, rusty gold. The cliffs ahead loomed higher now, no longer just a line on the horizon. I could see cracks running through them, narrow cuts where the sun struggled to reach. A faint breeze flowed out of those gaps, cooler than the air around me, carrying with it a smell of stone and something older, deeper. It sent a chill down my spine despite the heat. I stopped on a rise and looked back. The world behind me was just waves of sand and scattered rock, the town lost beyond the curve of the earth. No sign of people, no sign of a road, just me and my footprints, fading with every breath of wind. For the first time since leaving the saloon, I truly understood how alone I was. I set my jaw and turned toward the cliffs. Somewhere beyond those jagged walls lay the cave of the Shoshone legend, the place where the earth spirits hid their gold, the place guarded by something that was not man and not beast. Thomas Reed's ruined face flashed before my eyes, the nugget in his mouth, his final words about the things that remember. "You'll remember me too," I whispered to the empty desert. but only after I take what's mine. With the last light of day bleeding into the stone, I took my first steps toward the mouth of the canyon, feeling the air grow cooler and the silence grow heavier with every stride. The canyon swallowed the sun, leaving only jagged streaks of dying light on the broken stone. The air cooled, finally, and every breath tasted like old rock and ancient dust. At the base of the cliffs, I found the opening, narrow, hidden behind a tumble of boulders, almost invisible unless you knew where to look. The cave mouth felt wrong, out of place, like a wound in the world. I stood for a minute, listening. Silence pressed in, heavy and absolute. No wind, no animals, not even the sound of shifting sand. I took out my lantern and struck a match, the sharp flare of light briefly fighting back the darkness. Inside, the cave sucked up the glow. Walls crowded close, jagged and pale, marked with strange symbols that twisted in the flickering flame. My heart beat in my throat. Every step echoed off stone, and the sound came back warped as if something was listening. I pushed further in, the air growing colder and thicker, almost hard to swallow. The map said the treasure lay deep, past 3 turns, beyond an underground pool. But the cave seemed to stretch on forever, every corner a threat. At the second bend, I stopped. On the wall, a mark shaped like an eye, fresh scratches around it. The story said the spirits marked their territory. I swallowed, wiped sweat from my brow, and pressed on. The walls started to shimmer with veins of gold, real gold, just beneath the stone. My hands shook. For a moment, I forgot about curses and old legends. I thought only of Maria, the children, a warm home. Suddenly, the cold thickened. I heard it, 2 quick knocks from deep inside, like rock against rock. I froze, breath trapped in my chest. Twice more, the same rhythm as in the desert at night. I remembered the bartender's words, Reed's eyes. Something was in here with me, waiting. I forced myself to move. Ahead lay a black pool, surface smooth as glass. My lantern barely lit its edge. On the far wall, more symbols, eyes, hands, a twisted figure. I dropped to my knees, searching through the dust and broken rocks. My fingertips brushed something hard and cold. Gold, a real nugget, heavy as hope. But the air shifted. A shadow moved behind me, slow, silent, patient. I didn't turn. I closed my fist around the gold, stood and whispered, "I'm not leaving empty-handed." Behind me, the cave answered. 2 short knocks, then silence. The silence behind me grew thicker as I left the cavern's mouth and climbed up into the cool shade between jagged canyon walls. I forced myself not to look back. The weight of the gold in my pocket was both comfort and warning. The path inside narrowed, winding past outcrops of stone and tangles of thorny brush. Every step echoed. My lantern, now guttering, painted trembling shadows on rocks that seemed to shift as I passed. As dusk settled, the canyon opened onto a hidden plateau ringed with stunted trees and spiny yucca. Faint trails led off in different directions, tracks in the dust, too many for one man, some impossibly large, others scuffed and narrow. I could not tell if they belonged to men or something else. The stories swirled in my head, creatures that walked upright but left 3-toed prints, ghosts that haunted ancient gold. Suddenly, a sharp cry tore the stillness, a coyote, or maybe not. I gripped the map, breath shallow, watching the place where the path vanished into shadow. Out of the dusk, a flicker of movement, a silhouette, lone and slow, paused amid the twisted trees. My heart pounded. I crouched low, hand on the handle of my old revolver. Night came fast. With it, A kind of thick, expectant hush pressed down on the land. I moved carefully, following the voices of instinct, never turning my back on empty darkness, never walking openly across the plateau. The moon was just a sliver, barely enough to see the canyon rim above. As I crossed to a dry creek bed, a sound stopped me. Low voices, hard-edged, speaking Spanish. Two shadowy figures at a camp, on the far side of the wash, a small fire glowing. I recognized one, Ramon, a prospector from my old village. I almost called out, but the words died in my throat. I heard snatches of talk. Gold, legends, the cave. They too searched for fortune, but something in their tense laughter sent chills up my spine. I watched from the dark, silent, unseen. The map seemed to burn in my hand. Above, between canyon teeth, stars blinked one by one. Somewhere close, the desert's heart beat, and the old spirits, beneath the earth, above in the clear black sky, were listening. The fire on the far side of the dry creek burned low, shrinking to a dull orange eye in the dark. I watched Ramon and his partner move around it, two shadows pacing in a tight circle, their voices sharp and restless. I could not make out every word, but I heard enough. Gold, cave, Mexican from the town. That last one made the skin on my neck crawl. They knew someone else was here. I slipped back from the edge of the wash and pressed my body against the cold rock. The desert night wrapped around me like a damp blanket filled with quiet sounds. The rasp of insects, a far-off coyote, the faint clink of metal from the camp. My hand rested on the revolver at my belt. I did not want trouble with Ramon. Back home, he used to sit at my table, drink my mezcal, complain about how life had cheated him. Now he was out here hunting the same dream I was. Only out here, dreams had teeth. For a while, I just listened. One of them cursed in a hoarse whisper. Another kicked at the fire, sending a fan of sparks into the dark. They argued over the map they didn't have, over stories they'd heard in the town, over who would get the largest share of the gold when they found it. No one spoke about what else might be waiting in the canyon. Men like that didn't believe in spirits until something touched them in the dark. A gust of wind slid through the canyon, cool and thin. It carried a smell of damp stone from deeper inside, and under it, just for a second, the same cold metallic scent I'd noticed in the cave. Like wet iron, like old blood left on rock. Enough. Standing still would not change anything. The cave was behind me now. The canyon, the plateau, the night ahead. I needed distance between myself and Ramon before dawn. Gold could turn men into wolves, and I was not ready to find out whether he'd choose friendship or hunger if he saw the bulge of my pocket. Carefully, I moved along the side of the creek bed, keeping low, using bushes and rocks as cover. Each step felt too loud. Once, a loose stone rolled under my boot and clacked against another. I froze, heart hammering. Across the wash, Ramon's partner straightened, peering into the dark. "Oíste eso?" he muttered. I held my breath until my lungs burned. After a moment, the man shrugged and went back to the fire. Only then did I let the air out slowly and continue, one cautious step at a time, until their voices faded behind me. The land rose, then dipped again, folding into shallow gullies and ridges that played tricks on my sense of direction. Without the stars and the shape of the canyon walls, I would have been lost in minutes. I checked the map by lantern light, the flame flickering in the night wind. The line toward the old Shoshone Trail cut east along the cliffs, skirting the deepest part of the ravine. That was where I planned to go at first, but something tugged at me. A stubborn feeling in the gut, the same feeling that had pushed me out of my village and into this desert. The cave wasn't finished with me. One nugget in my pocket felt too light compared to what might still lie under all that stone. Enough to buy a ranch, maybe. Enough to buy a new life. Enough to make sure my children never set foot in a mine. I stopped on a flat rock and looked back toward the black line of the canyon. The memory of those two knocks echoed in my skull. Not man, not beast. The bartender's tired eyes, Thomas Reed's ruined face, and still, under all that, a greed that refused to die. Just one more time, I whispered to myself. Go back in daylight. See how deep it really goes. Then leave. The desert didn't answer. It never does. But the wind shifted, blowing from the direction of the canyon, cool and steady, as if the earth itself exhaled. A shiver ran through me, despite the heat that still clung to the ground. I found a narrow hollow between two boulders and decided to camp there until sunrise. I gathered what little dry brush I could find and built a small fire, shielding the flames with stones so the light wouldn't carry far. The warmth felt good on my raw hands. My boots steamed faintly as the sweat in the leather met the heat. Sitting with my back to the rock, I pulled the nugget from my pocket and turned it in my fingers. Even in the weak firelight, it glowed with a dull, honest yellow. Heavy, real. I imagined Maria holding it, her eyes wide, the weight of worry lifting from her shoulders. I imagined my sons running through a field that belonged to us, not to some landowner with soft hands and cold eyes. For a while, hope dulled the edges of fear. Then I heard it again, not from the canyon this time. From somewhere out in the dark, beyond the reach of my firelight. Two soft knocks. A pause. Two more. Like stone tapping stone, but slower now, more deliberate. My skin turned cold. The sound didn't echo like normal noise. It slid around the rocks, found its way straight into my ears. I got to my feet, revolver in one hand, nugget still clutched in the other. The fire crackled behind me, suddenly sounding too loud, too alive. I stared into the black between the boulders, where the stars vanished behind some unseen shape. Who's there? My voice came out rough, smaller than I wanted. Silence. Then, out of that heavy silence, a new sound, a slow, dragging breath, as if something enormous was trying to remember how to breathe like a man. I did not sleep that night. I sat with my back to the rock, eyes fixed on the darkness, the revolver never. Dawn came slow, painting the canyon rim with a thin line of blood-red light. I had not slept, my back pressed against unyielding stone, revolver heavy in my lap. The knocks had stopped after the first hour, replaced by that slow breathing, inhuman, patient circling just beyond the fire's reach. Whatever it was, it had waited for morning, as if the dark was its ally and the light its enemy. I kicked dirt over the dying embers and stood, joints stiff from the cold night. The nugget weighed against my thigh like a promise or a curse. Ramon's camp was silent across the wash. They slept or had moved on. I did not care to find out. My path led back to the cave, one last time. Greed or madness, I could not tell which drove me, but the pull was stronger than fear. The sun climbed as I retraced my steps, the canyon walls glowing like furnace bricks. Heat returned with a vengeance, sucking moisture from the air. Lizards skittered across rocks, vanishing into cracks. The cave mouth loomed ahead, blacker in daylight, its shadows thicker, as if the stone itself resisted the sun. Inside, my lantern cut a narrow path through the dark. The air hit like a wet slap, cold, metallic, alive with the smell of deep earth. Echoes bounced sharper now, every drip of water a warning. I passed the pool, its surface unbroken, reflecting my flickering light like a black mirror. The symbols on the walls seemed to watch me, eyes carved by hands that were not human. Deeper, where the gold veins thickened, I knelt and chipped at the stone with my knife. Flakes fell away, revealing more nuggets, larger than the first. My breath quickened. This was it, the motherlode. Enough to change everything. I filled my pockets, my bandana, even my hat, hands trembling with cold rock and feverish joy. Then the knocks returned. Not two this time, but a rhythm. Two quick, one slow. Closer, from the tunnel ahead. I spun, lantern raised. Nothing, just shadows dancing on wet stone. But the air moved, a faint current from behind, carrying that iron tang again. I was not alone. Something had followed me in, or been waiting all along. Show yourself! My shout died in the tunnel. Footsteps answered, slow, scraping, deliberate. Not boots, something heavier, with claws. I ran, lantern swinging wild, gold clinking in my pockets like chains. The cave twisted, turns blurring into nightmare. Behind, the scraping grew louder, joined by a low rasp like scales on stone. I burst into the first chamber, lungs burning, and risked a glance back. In the lantern's swing, I saw it, tall, upright, skin like cracked leather over muscle and bone. Eyes reflected yellow, unblinking. Mouth a lipless gash, teeth glinting wet. It moved wrong, joints bending at impossible angles, too fluid, too old. The Shoshone Guardian, alive, remembering. I fired twice, the revolver's roar deafening in the stone throat. Sparks flew off rock. It did not slow. I turned and fled toward daylight, gold weighing me down, the thing's breath hot on my neck. Outside, sun blinded me. I stumbled into scrub, revolver empty, pockets tearing under the weight. Behind, from the cave mouth, two knocks echoed, final, mocking. I did not stop running until the canyon was miles behind, legs burning, lungs raw from dust and terror. The creature's scraping pursuit faded with distance, not because it stopped, but because it chose not to follow into the open sun. I glanced back once. The cave mouth was just a black scar on the horizon, silent now, as if the guardian had melted back into stone, waiting for the next fool. Two final knocks echoed faintly on the wind. Then, nothing. Whatever it was, it belonged to the dark places, not the blazing Mojave day. Bruised and gasping, I collapsed behind a cluster of boulders, revolver empty, pockets torn and spilling gold nuggets into the sand. The weight had nearly cost me my life, too heavy to run with, too precious to abandon. I gathered what I could, stuffing them into my bandana, heart still hammering. Ramon's camp was somewhere nearby. I could smell their fire smoke on the breeze. No time to rest. If they found me like this, bloodied and laden with gold, friendship would turn to greed fast. The sun climbed higher, baking the desert floor. Lizards skittered away as I staggered onward, following instinct back toward town. Every shadow seemed to move, every rock to hide yellow eyes. The creature hadn't followed, but its presence lingered. In the unnatural silence, in the cold knot of fear in my gut. I vowed to sell the gold quick, get Maria and the kids, and leave this cursed land forever. But deep down, I knew the canyon's pull wasn't done with me yet. The desert sun beat down mercilessly as I staggered back toward town, gold wrapped tightly in my bandana, slapping against my thigh with every labored step. It was a living pulse, a constant reminder of the cave, those unblinking yellow eyes, the rasping scale still echoing in my ears. With every breath, dust coated my tongue. Wounds from sharp rocks bled, leaving red trails in the sand. I glanced back every minute. Was that shadow behind the cactus moving? Was that rock ahead tapping? The creature hadn't chased me into the open sun, but its presence lingered. A cold touch on my neck, a whispering wind calling me back to the canyon. Town had changed. Ramon waited outside the saloon, arms crossed, his eyes like blades scanning my torn clothes and the bulge of gold peeking from the bandana. "Traes la muerte contigo," he muttered in Spanish, not offering a hand. The bartender crossed himself when I entered. Drunks fell silent, edging away. Rumors spread faster than wind. He found Shoshone gold. It's cursed. Touch it, hear the knocks. Nights became nightmares, dreams of cave walls closing in. Eyes glowing in darkness, sudden scratches at the window waking me with revolver ready. The gold promised a ranch, school for the kids, a warm home for Maria, but each nugget felt like an eye watching. I couldn't sell it. Buyers averted eyes, whispering of curses. Town turned into a trap, every glance suspicion, every shadow a threat. My hand never left the revolver, sleep never came, and the canyon's weight grew heavier with each day. One night, a storm slammed the town, winds howling like a wounded beast, lightning tearing the sky. I sat by candlelight, turning the nugget in my fingers, when I heard it again. 2 knocks, pause, 2 more. First faint, then growing louder, like the creature prowling the streets, claws tapping wood. Doors rattled, windows vibrated, and Ramon's words echoed in my head. Te llama de vuelta lo que robaste. It calls back what you stole. Dreams blurred into waking hours. The cave pulsed like a heart, eyes raging with millennial fury. Maria calling from the shadows. I woke drenched in sweat, revolver in hand, a fresh 3-toed claw mark on the windowsill. The next day, Ramon arrived with his partner, red eyes, trembling hands. "It's coming for us both," he said. "Knocks all night, shadows at the windows. We go back and end this." I knew running was useless. The creature wouldn't relent. The canyon wouldn't release me. I packed bullets, knife, map, and we set out under the scorching sun toward the black maw of the cliffs. Every step echoed in my head as knocks. Every breath carried the scent of wet stone. The final battle awaited, not for gold, but for life. The canyon held its breath as we faced off, man and guardian, greed locked with ancient will. Ramon fired first. The revolver cracks shattered silent stone. Shadows leapt and collided in the flickering lantern light. The creature lunged, scales scraping walls, unblinking yellow eyes filled with a hunger older than memory. Bullets sparked off its hide, claws raked the air inches from my face. We fought back to back, Ramon cursing in Spanish, me slashing with a knife, gold spilled from pockets like blood. It was more than a beast. It was the canyon's rage, the furious spirits of the earth defending when wronged. Dawn painted the sky gold as the creature faltered, wounds dark and oozing. It retreated into the depths with final 2 knocks, mocking, fading. The cave fell silent. Ramon slumped, shot in the shoulder. I limped away, ribs fractured, gold lighter, but victory bitter. We crawled into sunlight. The gold was cursed, but ours, alive. We survived. The desert quieted once more, but I knew the canyon's story was far from over. Something watched in the shadows, waiting for the next foolish soul. For Maria and the children, this was just the beginning.